All right, so we're going to start on number 10. This is where most of us either passed or we stopped here in one of the classes. So, number 10, which event would most likely cause an ecosystem to have the lowest biodiversity? And I went ahead and broke down the word biodiversity. Means life, bio means life, diversity means variety, and population size is 3 years later. Clearing land for a highway. So there's a highway that's built. Okay. There's still going to be biodiversity on either side, on both. If it's in the forest or if there's a desert, there's still going to be plants and animals living on the sides. Okay, so this one might be a good answer. We'll see. A river floods a cornfield. Well, after 3 years, the cornfield should be dry. The weeds, grasses, and corn should be back to normal. So I'm going to say this one's not going to be our answer. Okay. H. A forest fire destroys the plant growth. Well, after that, secondary succession is going to happen. And we know that secondary succession starts with weeds and grasses and moves to shrubs. So by 3 years, we should at least be at grasses, weeds, and shrubs, maybe even some young trees. So that's going to be diversity, biodiversity of some sort. And J, a lava flow creates a new section of land. Well, lava flow, new section of land, no life on that new land. Okay? So it still has to be broken down. It hasn't been broken down by the lichens and the mosses yet. So this one is actually the lowest. J is our lowest, okay? That's number 10. 11. You can pause this video at any time and go back and rewind and see what you need to add for your test corrections. Number 11, the role of pioneer species. Ooh, circle pioneer species. We know 2 of them. Lichen and moss, and these are both plants. The role of a pioneer species in primary succession is to change a bare habitat, bare rock, into one that is suitable for other organisms, into a good ecosystem. A species that is responsible for primary succession in an ecosystem is most likely able to do ... What? What must they be able to do? Survive any predators? There's no predators because there's just rock. Migrate during the winter? Plants can't move. Can't just get up and go. Live in high altitude? Well, there's plants that live up there, but not bare rock doesn't always happen in high altitudes. Okay, and then carry out photosynthesis. Do the plants have to carry out photosynthesis? Yes, all the time. Okay? So the plants, the lichen and the moss, have to be able to do photosynthesis. If they can't do photosynthesis, then they can't break down this bare rock. And you're never going to have primary succession happen or go through the stages, at least. Number 12. Number 12 should have been pretty simple. It's asking you which of the following sequences, so one of these, most likely represents ecological succession on a recently abandoned wheat field. Okay, so the wheat field already has soil. So from the soil, what's the first thing that we're going to have? If you would have just looked up at the charts or remember the anchor charts, you always start with grasses and weeds. So the only one that starts with grasses and weeds is letter F. G started with trees, H started with shrubs, J started with flowering plants. So the only answer that we really have is F. Number 13. A hurricane hits a coastal prairie and destroys the habitat. coastal prairie. There's already soil. Destroys the habitat. Years later, there is an appearance of small plants with rapidly spreading roots. This vegetation, describes, so what is it telling you by saying small plants? What occurred? It describes a microhabitat. Not a microhabitat is just a place. That's not what it's describing. Plus, coastal prairie, that would be an ecosystem, and specifically on the coast. So it's a biome, and it's an ecosystem, specifically the coastal prairie. B, primary succession. Is there bare rock? No, not there. Okay, no bare rock. C, secondary succession. Is there soil? Yes, soil. And then small plants. So that's our best answer so far. And the vegetation describes biodiversity. That's not what this means. Okay, years later there is an appearance of small plants with rapidly spreading roots. Well, it just mentioned plants. It didn't even mention animals. So C is your best choice. Let's go ahead and move on to number 14. You can pause this video at any time. Number 14. A flower bed is created at a school so flowers can be planted in autumn. Over the summer, the flower bed is ignored. Which of the following should the students expect to find when they come back to school? Tilled dirt, dirt that's been moved. Okay, so they've moved the nutrients around to get ready for the planting of new flowers. What can they expect? Well, basically, if this is the first picture, what's the next picture? Number 2. What's number 2? What should go right after this one? We always start with something small. We cannot start with a tree. We cannot start with shrubs. And definitely we're not going to keep the same thing. Something's going to happen because there's soil. And the answer is G. So this one would be the second step. The third step would be shrubs. And the fourth step would be trees. But we're asking for the next step after this one. So it has to be letter G. Alright, number 15. When forest fires destroyed many of the pine trees in Bastrop State Park, you don't even need that, the burned areas began secondary succession. Secondary succession. Grass and weeds then lead to shrubs that lead to young trees that then lead to mature trees. Okay, so what is the role, what is the job of succession in this example? To create new soil? We already have soil, so it can't be A. B, restoring the ecosystem through grass, shrub, and tree stages? That reminds me of this, so that's a maybe. Changing the landscape to be more fire resistant? Nope. And D, opening the land for new uses like farming and raising. That is a state park thing. That's something that humans decide if we're going to use that for farming or livestock. Okay, that's something we decide. So B is your best choice. Number 15 is B. Number 16 should be pretty easy, but some of y'all missed it because there's a lot of words and some of y'all are getting to the point where you don't want to read. You need to quit and come up with an idea or a strategy that will help you read through. Living organisms are made up of cells. Cells are organized at different levels to form very complex living organisms like your body. It even gave it to you that your body is complex or that you're an organism. different levels to form a very complex. So it's already telling you that complex is organism. Each level has a specific role or job to perform. Which of the following lists these levels in correct order from the simplest, or somebody pointed out the word lest or least is right there. So the smallest level to the most complex to the largest level. So the smallest thing is the cell. Cell, tissue, organs, organ systems, organism. The first one sounds great. Organisms, organ systems, organs, tissues, and cells. That's from smallest to largest. Well, that's not what we want. Tissues, cells. Nope, cells go in tissues. Organs, organ systems. Okay, that's fine right there. In organisms, and then an organism fits in a cell. That's not true. So F is your best choice. Maybe you didn't know the word simple, and maybe you didn't know the word complex. Make sure you're writing that on your correction sheet. Number 11, all of the following are true, except, which one is not? Which one's false? The skin is an organ. That is true. It's the largest organ in your body. Organs are made up of tissues. That's true. And, we still got two more. Each organ is made up of its own kind of tissue. Well, sometimes we have different types of tissues working together. So that's false already, so I'm going to question mark it. And tissues are made up of cells, and that's always true. They're always made up of cells. So the only one that's false ends up being C. 18. The food that you eat travels from your mouth, down your esophagus, into your stomach, and through your small and large intestines before your body rids itself of solid waste. As the food passes through your body, it is digested and you get important nutrients from the food. Which of the following is the correct term used to describe a group of body parts, a group of organs, working together to perform a specific, their only function? An organism is a group of organ systems. That's not it. Tissue is cells together. That's not it. An organ system has organs working together. That reminds me of that one, so question mark it. And an organ is tissues working together. So the answer is H. All right. And the last two. Number 19 and 20. What level of organization within a plant is the structure below? So on one of the reviews questions, I think it was the last one, I gave you there's a cell plant, or a cell of a plant, so a plant cell, that's the bottom thing, and then the top picture was a tree, and that was the organism. So just one leaf, okay, one leaf has to be one of these options. So let's take a look. So it's either organ, organ system, tissue, or organism. We for sure know that the leaf is not the entire organism. Okay, we for sure know that. That's not a tree. Not a tree. A tissue is just one part. Okay, that's not just one part. Alright, so we can't count that one. There's specific, there's like root tissue, okay, and the tissue in the bark, and so on. An organ system is many organs working together. The leaf ends up being just one organ, and all the leaves together make up an organ system. So the answer is A. So B is all leaves together. And number 20, plant root tips have a layer of cells that function together. This is a tissue. To grow rapidly, to allow the plant to increase the plant's ability to reach water and stabilize in the ground. Based on this information, what level of organization describes the plant root tips? I already gave you the answer because it should be tissue, cells that function together. It's not an organ, it's not an organ system, and it's not the whole plant. It's just a part of it that's made up of just cells. So it's a tissue. All right, that's it.